You know Graybar for electrical parts, but there's one more thing you may not be thinking of us for that can help maximize your next project's total value. Our pre-project planning services are designed to help you win the bid, save on labor costs, and keep your installers productive across your entire build. The sooner you call us, the better. Because when we're there from the beginning, we can anticipate your needs and help you solve problems before they become problems. Yep, Graybar does that.
Episode of the Show Before the Show podcast, the official podcast of minor league baseball. It is a new era in the Show Before the Show podcast, in that I learned recently that when I send Sam the files for these episodes, there's a feature on Slack where it automatically transcribes the episodes, which I was completely unaware of. And today I was looking at, like, what is this weird? This is a strange thing. Why is this showing up with like the text of the podcast? And I opened it up and I scrolled down a little bit. And I arrived at this section of last week's episode of the podcast. We were talking about something, and one of the transcribed lines was, quote, "That looks like a butt," unquote. And that was because we were talking about a minor league baseball team at one time in Gaffney, South Carolina, the Gaffney Cobblers, who have that water tower that looks like a big peach. And I said, "Oh yeah, it looks like a butt." And that got transcribed by the good folks at Slash on an automated platform. It's very mature what we do at this show. Hi, Sam.
Yeah, it's good to see that stuff in black and white, right? Like we just talk into these cans that are microphones and think like, oh, it's out in the world now.
Yeah, nobody's listening, whatever.
But it's just like when it gets preserved by another service is very striking. But it is good to be back with everybody. I know you just mentioned that episode. That was 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, 2 weeks ago.
We took last week off to plan out for the next few weeks. Including this episode we have this week. We have some really good stuff in the pipeline, so we're glad to be back with you guys.
We are.
And excited for what's coming down the pike. I mean, it's late January now. Pitchers and catchers is around the corner.
Yeah,
we're getting
2 weeks, man.
Yeah, we're getting promo calendars now. We're talking about something big here in this first segment. That is always a sign of the coming season. So feeling a little bit refreshed after taking a week off, and thank you for your patience and joining us, back up with us here on in the late January.
Absolutely. He is Sam Dykstra. I am Tyler Mon. Benjamin Hill will join us coming up here in a little bit. We are thrilled today. On this week's episode of the Show Before the Show, we are going to be joined by one of the most discussed names in baseball over the last couple of weeks, and that is Ronnie Gajownik, the new manager of the High A Hillsboro Hops, who will join the show coming up here in just a little bit. Ronnie becoming the first woman to take over as manager at the high A level in minor league baseball, which is super cool. Really excited to talk with Ronnie. And yeah, as Sam noted, really excited for what we got coming up for you this season on the Minor League Baseball podcast. A little bit of inside baseball. We've kind of been trying to figure out, what does the road ahead for the Show Before the Show look like? How do we continue to make it fresh? We've done the show for 7 seasons now, and we've generally followed a pretty similar format since season 1 with Jake Seiner, RIP Jake, where we've gone, opening segment, talked about the topics of the day, interview, Ben, blah, blah, blah. But we're going to bring you some fun and new creative stuff as this season goes along on the Show Before the Show, and we are really excited about it. So we'll hear from Ronnie. We're also going to talk about the culmination of our effort 2 weeks ago to design a fictional minor league baseball team, name, logo, hat, all of it for National Hat Day. Vince Petafrezzo, who is one of the best dudes that we come across in our daily work at MILB. Vince, a graphic designer who does, if you've ever seen a graphic come out from MILB and thought, that's awesome, well, that's Vince. So Vince, and I should say from MILB as in MILB.com, not that like every team is done by Vince, but Vince probably could do just about every team. His work is amazing. Vince came up with the look for our fictional team, the Austin Knights. We'll catch up about the Knights coming up here shortly, and a lot to get to on this week's episode of the Show Before the Show. And as Sam noted, we will kick things off with the biggest discussion point for prospect fans as we head into any minor league baseball season, and that is the brand new top 100 prospects list, which is now, by the time you are hearing this, live at MLB.com. MLB Pipeline's Top 100 has arrived with a brand new top prospect in baseball, as if Baltimore Orioles fans needed anything to be more pumped about prospect-wise going into a new season, you now have the number one overall prospect in baseball. Friend of the show, Gunnar Henderson, is the new number one, the third base / shortstop prospect, who has already played 36 days in the big leagues, or has been on the big league squad for 36 days. So likely headed toward the graduation from his prospect status fairly shortly into this 2023 season. Gunnar Henderson, our new number one. We're going to talk about some items through the top 100, but let's start there, Sam. What makes Gunnar Henderson the number one prospect in baseball coming into this season?
Yeah, so you mentioned this is a change, right? Like we did our midseason update last year in August. We named Francisco Alvarez, the Mets catcher, number one overall prospect then, and we saw it kind of as a big three. This isn't always the case, but it's a conversation we had last year between Bobby Witt Jr., Adley Rutschman, and Julio Rodriguez. We saw as the big three. This time around, it was Francisco Alvarez, Gunnar Henderson, and Corbin Carroll, who we think of as kind of separated themselves from the group. Now, since we did that re-rank in August, Gunnar Henderson and Corbin Carroll, as you mentioned, Tyler, both have ample major league experience and success. It's not just that they got to the majors. They both held themselves incredibly well. The advantage that I think Gunnar Henderson has over Corbin Carroll, over Francisco Alvarez, is that we believe just the overall offensive package is going to be greater than the other two guys. Corbin Carroll can really hit. He has a little bit more power than you would expect if you just look at him. But Gunnar Henderson can hit. He can walk. He can hit with authority. We gave his power a 65 on the 20 to 80 scale, which is bordering on plus. He can really play a good third base. He was brought up as a shortstop, as you mentioned. I mean, in another system, there's a decent chance that Gunnar Henderson would still be a shortstop, and then this would not be a debate. I think where the debate comes is, okay, if he's third basemen usually have to hit a little bit more than shortstop. Can he do that? We believe so. I mean, that he's proved that he can do that at every level. He was young for AA. He was young for AAA. He was certainly young for the majors last year. He ticks every box that we're looking for. He's athletic, above average speed. You could even put plus speed on that if you wanted. We have it at 55, but you could go even above that given what he was showing when he was hitting top speed in the majors last year. Like you said, Tyler, as if the Orioles need another primo prospect. Another guy who's entering the year in the number one discussion after was Adley Rutschman last year. Gunnar Henderson is it. I mean, he should be in their opening day lineup. I think it's going to be at third base, but just because Jorge Mateo had a really strong year at shortstop last year. They have Joey Ortiz, who's coming up behind him, who's a really, really strong defender at the six. But all of that put together, like Gunnar Henderson is a true five-tool talent. And the fact that he has, we think, just a little bit more power. I won't even say a little bit. He has a tick more power than Corbin Carroll, gives him the advantage here because it is going to be the stick that's the driving tool for both of these guys. But it is a conversation. You know, Francisco Alvarez, why did he drop 3? It's always the defense with him, right? Like the power, the raw power is top of the scale. It's 80 raw power. We have him at 70 in game. It really plays. I always go back to the Buck Showalter quote from last spring of, you know, they were trying to put the pitch like wristband on him to call pitches as everybody was getting used to that in the spring. He couldn't fit it over his forearm because his arms are so big.
So gigantic. Yeah, that is that's I've never had that problem.
I have not either.
With
If anything, they might have to like squeeze it down a little bit.
They have to they have to wrap it around a second time like an asparagus stalk with a rubber band.
There you go. Yeah, we don't have that problem. Francisco Alvarez certainly does. He backs it up. The exit velos are tremendous. The power he shows, the way he can drive the ball when he really gets behind one is really special. It's just, who is he defensively? He had an ankle injury at the end of last year that delayed his defensive development. It's gotten to the point where the bat is way ahead of the defense. And if they were at the same level, he might be entering the year at AA, right? Like he needs that experience catching upper level arms. But he's not being challenged offensively anymore. So it's going to be an interesting mix for the Mets. Maybe they try to work him in. I know they have plentiful DH options and, they're actually pretty set at catcher right now entering the year. Alvarez is probably their third catcher. How do they work that? We'll see. But it's just, if he is able to stick a catcher at all, even if he's slightly below average, the bat is just so special that he could be a multi-time All-Star. And I made this comparison last year, just how good he is with power and the bat overall. He could be 75% Mike Piazza, which, should send all sorts of signals out to Mets fans of how good he can be. And that might not sound great, but that's 75% of a Hall of Famer for a guy we're talking about with very limited major league experience. It's really special. That's what solidified them amongst their top three. But Gunnar Henderson just separates himself, the ability to be a 5-tool talent with power, with a hit tool, with ability to take a walk. He's playing on the dirt. Those guys don't come around very often. When we voted, it was unanimous among us three. We got feedback. Nobody said, hey, take Corbin or put Corbin Carroll above him. Or nobody said like Gunnar Henderson, knock him down a few pegs. The entire industry is excited about this guy.
So that is your new number one. Now, there are a few spots that we're going to talk about throughout the top 10, the top 100. But of course, you can check the entirety of the top 100 at MLB Pipeline. And we also have a new top pitching prospect in baseball, Andrew Painter in the Philadelphia Phillies organization, who climbed through like 18 different levels last season. Andrew Painter, really, really impressive 2022. Vaults over Grayson Rodriguez as the top pitching prospect in baseball. Grayson Rodriguez was in that final tune-up start before we anticipated that he would be in Baltimore to start his big league career in that rotation, and then was injured in that AAA start for Norfolk. So an unfortunate turn of events for Grayson Rodriguez, but obviously his profile is still extremely impressive. But Andrew Painter being that new number one pitching prospect in baseball, what do you like most about him, Sam?
Yeah, I mean, you start with, I guess, size. He's 6'7". I mean, I remember having this discussion amongst ourselves last year going into the top 100 of like Andrew Painter, who was the 13th overall pick in 2021, was maybe on the periphery of the top 100. It's just very projectable size. The stuff was looking pretty good going into his first full year. We just hadn't seen it over a large sample. And then all of a sudden, and this isn't totally based on stats, but when a guy has a 1.56 ERA in his first full season, over 103 and 2/3 innings across three levels, and is finishing out his first full season at Double-A, and oh, by the way, isn't just finishing out the season there, but has a 2.54 ERA at Double-A a year after he was pitching in high school. And this is my favorite bit. He threw 28 1/3 innings at Double-A. Like the most experienced batters he's ever faced, guys who are very disciplined, who know what the strike zone are, who are patient and are usually only going to swing at their pitches. He walked two batters in 28 1/3 innings. At the end of the year, he could have easily been breaking down. He could have been, like struggling with how do I approach these guys? No, he walked two batters and struck out 37. He just seemed to be gaining momentum as the year went on. The stuff itself is really good. We gave a 70 grade to the fastball. His slider is plus. His changeup is above average. He has a curveball. But I think it's just that control. You don't find many 6'7" guys who can pinpoint the ball like Andrew Painter can. I mean, usually when you have guys that size with a fastball like him, we're talking about, well, they don't know where it's going. Like maybe someday he'll figure it out. He's already figured it out. It's really special. He's only turning 20 years old on April 10th. It's just all those confluence of factors that kind of pushed him over the edge for us. Now, you mentioned Grayson Rodriguez, certainly in that conversation, and they're back-to-back in the top 100. I mean, there's not much separating these two guys. Painter is number 6, Grayson Rodriguez is number 7. It's just the fact that Rodriguez is coming off a lat strain, which is a little worrisome. It sounds like coming back, he wasn't quite as masterful as he was before. Makes sense. You take a few months off, that's going to happen. But just all that momentum that Painter has, and the fact that he's younger and already at Double-A and could be a major league factor this year, it just tipped him over the edge for us. But if you wanted to flip either of those two guys, because I think Grayson Rodriguez might have a slightly deeper arsenal than Andrew Painter, I wouldn't argue against it. You have to make a call at a certain point, and we just took the guy who is coming off a really, really special season.
Let's continue along a little bit further down the top 100, not too far down. A guy who always catches both of our eyes when it comes to prospect discussions and rankings and all of that is Milwaukee Brewers outfield prospect Jackson Chourio. Now, Jackson Chourio was entirely out of the top 100 to start the 2022 season, and then just flew through a breakout campaign in the minor leagues. And now not only a top 100 prospect, he is a top 10 prospect. He's the number 8 prospect in baseball. What is next for Jackson Chourio? Because we've seen guys who have sort of that prospect helium. They have that big breakout season, and then they start coming back to earth. I don't necessarily think he is one of those guys, but what do you have to see from Jackson Chourio in 2023 to, not necessarily justify that ranking, but see him continue to progress the way he did last year?
Yeah, I mean, I think the big thing for Jackson Chourio is he is as tooled up as anybody in this top 10. I mean, the speed is plus. He has really good power, which again is not something you would expect out of a guy who's listed at 6'1", 165 pounds. But talking to some Brewers people last year, they were just like, it's amazing at how well he's able to flick the ball, even to right center, even to right. Like he can drive the ball with authority all over the diamond. And he's doing that at such a young age. I mean, he was in his age 18 season last year, skipped right over the complex leagues, and the Brewers couldn't find a challenge for him. They sent him to single A. They sent him to high A, and they ended the year at double A, which is actually where this next point comes, Tyler, because you were mentioning, like, what do you need to see from him this year? And he was challenged at double A. Some of the swing decisions that he has and some of the bat on ball skills are a little bit lacking. Now, he's shown a really promising ability to make adjustments. I remember talking to some folks and hearing like he struggles with the breaking ball away. And as he saw more of that, he adjusted to it. He knew that's how he's being pitched. That's how he started hitting the ball the opposite way. But now, after seeing Biloxi last year, it might have been the end of a long season, but he was 2 for 23. Not great, with 11 strikeouts. So he was just not putting the bat on the ball, and that is where we put on the brakes a little bit. Is yes, he has all these tools. He can be a really special center fielder. Ask some questions about the arm, but he won a minor league Gold Glove last year. Like he impressed a lot of folks with his defense, which is incredible for a guy who was originally signed as a shortstop. And they put him in center field because of the arm concerns and because they thought, let's just let this guy gallop. Let's just get him out in as much space as possible. Let him track down balls, and he does that well. It's just, how is he going to allow those skills to play? Ending it a little bit on a sour note, albeit on a very aggressive assignment, brings into questions about the hit tool. Can he make those adjustments? He's going to have the time to do so. It wouldn't surprise me if he spends a lot of this year at double A, just getting those at-bats, seeing the things that he needs to adjust, trying to make the better swing decisions. We're realizing, hey, this is where my power really plays. I can flick it to right center if I need to, but is that my best approach? Because I'm going to be swinging and missing at that pitch a lot, trying to get a double into the gap, which might happen once or twice a week. Let's try to hone in on where I'm best working in the zone. That's the next step for him. If that happens, and again, his ability to make adjustments is really special. I wouldn't bet against it. He's my bet to be the number 1 prospect going into next year, because I think he can make those
heard
adjustments.
It here first.
Yeah, he could be a 30-30 guy. He had 20 homers and 16 stolen bases last year. I think he gets a little bit more aggressive on the base pass, knows his speed. I think he adds even a little bit more power as he physically matures. He could easily challenge for that, while still not making the majors, because Milwaukee has such a loaded outfield, because they got to find a spot for Sal Frelick. They got to find a spot for Garrett Mitchell. They got to find a spot for Joey Weimer. And those are just the guys who are prospects still, never mind the guys they have at the major league level. So I don't think he's necessarily going to force his way in there, but I think if those offensive adjustments happen, Chourio is your number 1 guy heading into 2024.
There are 2 traditions when it comes to the time of the year when the top 100 prospect list comes out. One of those is being excited about the top 100 prospects list. The other is yelling angrily about the top 100 prospects list. Sam, among the top 100, which prospect do you assume will most cause consternation among prospect fans, whether it's because they think their guy in their organization is the best of all and you didn't see it that way, or because of your well-known biases against, I don't know, fill in the blank. I'm sure somebody will accuse you of that. Who's gonna be most upset about things and why?
I mean, we already got a taste of this because we release our top 10 positional lists first.
So you can sort of piece together who's going where based on the top 10 positional list if you're real eagle-eyed.
Right. So we released our shortstop list, which I got to do the write-up of and the breakdown of on MLB.com. And it's such a fun list to dive into, just because it is so deep. I think everybody in the top 10 shortstops list is within our top 40 overall prospects. It's really a really great list. And just to make the top 10 shortstops list, I think is an honor, or, is really difficult to do. But you mentioned like people think we have biases, and it doesn't help that we have the number one guy as a Yankee, the number two guy as a Red Sox. Like, that's just the way it worked out. I promise you.
Sure it did.
No, I promise you. Like, again, we get industry feedback on this stuff. We incorporate things. We get lots of opinions. It is not just three dudes, one of whom lives in Chicago, one of whom lives in Pittsburgh. I live in New York, but like, we're all spread out. I'm sorry, there is no bias here. But Anthony Volpe as our number one shortstop, Marcelo Meyer as our number two shortstop, and the guy at number three, I think, is going to get a lot of attention because he might be the most electric prospect in the minor leagues. It's Elly De La Cruz of the Cincinnati Reds. Now, why do we have him at number three? And then, looking at where he fits in the overall list, it's number 10. So he's number 10. He's the 10th best prospect in baseball. Again, incredibly difficult to get to that spot. But coming off the year that he had last year at high A, at double A, I think a lot of people look at the numbers: 28 homers, 47 stolen bases. We were talking about him potentially getting to a 30-40 season, which is very rare in the minor leagues. He batted .304. He had a .945 OPS, again, reaching double A. Really, really overall strong numbers. He also struck out 30% of the time. The list of people who strike out 30% of the time at high A and double A and have success with the hit tool at the majors is not a very long list. It's very short. We're talking about like Joey Gallo level strikeout numbers in the minor leagues. And we've seen what Joey Gallo is now. I mean, yes, he has as much raw power as anybody in the major leagues, but he was a free agent this year and he didn't have people banging down the door signing him to a 6 or 7 year deal. He ends up with the Twins. See how that works out. But the industry obviously does not value him as much. I don't think Elly De La Cruz is going to be Joey Gallo. He's a really, really good runner. He's supremely athletic. He steals more bases than that guy. He brings so much to the table. It's just the questions with the hit tool. What's going to happen with him as he climbs the ladder? He's going to face, probably double A pitching again next year, maybe even triple A pitching. Those guys are going to take advantage of the holes in his swing. And we have some questions about, like, who is he defensively? I think he's certainly athletic enough for shortstop. He has the arm for shortstop, but they've also tried him out in third base. There's some rumblings like, what would he look like as a center fielder? All premium positions, but still there's some defensive questions there as well. He is just so raw. He just turned 21 years old. So if he's 21 years old in the upper minors, that's young for that. I think there's just more to it than when you look at the numbers and think, this guy hit 300 and nearly hit 30 homers and stole 40 bases. Like, that's great. Why isn't he the number one prospect in baseball? It's like, oh, dig it a little deeper. You can find some holes in the swing and some bigger question marks. But it's so rare that we have a guy with 30% strike rate in the top 10 to begin with. And that's a credit to him because of the rest of the tools are so good.
Anything else from the top 100 that you want to highlight, Sam, or that you want to make sure we point out and acknowledge? I mean, obviously there are, draft selections from last year who are ranked pretty highly. Drew Jones is number 15 overall from the D-backs organization. Termarr Johnson, who is, I believe, our top ranked second base prospect this year. Correct. He is now number 27 overall. Is there anybody else who really sticks out that you think, like, keep an eye on this person, or this is a theme to watch in this system? Anything else that we should acknowledge to people before they dive in and digest the top 100 on their own?
Well, I mean, you mentioned draft picks, so I have to bring up Jackson Holliday. In that, I think if you look going into last year's draft, Drew Jones, I think, was the better prospect. And it was a little bit of a shock to see Jackson Holliday go first overall to the Orioles because they seemingly were going for the best prospect. They weren't going for necessarily just signability or somebody who would take, a haircut in the draft. But Jackson Holliday last year, starting out in the Florida Complex League, moving up to single A, again, shortly after he was playing in an Oklahoma high school, showed a really, really impressive strikeout to walk ratio. He walked 25 times and only struck out 12 in 20 games. Like, that's really impressive plate discipline for anybody, especially for a young teenager who just got drafted and was thrown into the deep end of the minor leagues. Like, I don't know exactly where he's going to land. It could be small sample stuff. This is over 20 games between the complex league and single A. And crazy things can happen, but usually crazy things like that don't happen. And I know Jim and Jonathan believe he can be the number one overall prospect going into 2024, especially if all this continues, because he has probably a better chance to stick at shortstop than Gunnar Henderson does. He's another 5-tool guy. All 5 tools grade out at least above average. Maybe we're talking about the hit above 60 if this continues at all, as he takes on a full season. So Jackson Holliday is somebody I just want to highlight real quick. He enters right now at number 12, which is 3 spots ahead of Drew Jones. But he has as much helium as anybody in this draft or in this top 100 that we just put together. And one guy I'll just throw out there too, and I'm really glad we got him on here, was Miguel Bleis of the Boston Red Sox. We have him at number 93. I don't want to say he's going to be this year's Jackson Churio, but he started to put in the pieces last year where you're getting whispers of like, this guy could really be a top 25 prospect. The tools are there. It's plus power, above average speed. He throws really well from the outfield. We just need to see it over a full season. And it's kind of like, well, if the pieces are there, we might as well rank him now. So I'm glad we did at number 93. But if he does what he did last year, over 100 plus games, I mean, he's a top 25 prospect, I think, in the game by the end of the year. So if you want to have somebody circled for like, this guy's going to make the biggest jump in 2023, I think it starts with him.
You can check out the top 100 prospects list at MLB Pipeline. You can send us your questions, thoughts, comments, concerns, podcast at MILB.com. And coming up, we are headed to the Arizona Diamondbacks organization here in our final episode of January 2023. That's how close we're getting to the season, because we're already talking with minor league coaching staffs and players and everybody else. And the first female manager in the high A level in minor league baseball, Ronnie Gajownik, joins this week's episode of the show before the show, coming up next. To the much warmer state of Arizona than where Sam and I currently sit right now in New York and Denver, respectively. We are headed to Scottsdale, where we get a chance to check up with the conversation piece of baseball managerial ranks this week. The newest pilot of the high A Hillsboro Hops, Ronnie Gajownik, joins the show. Ronnie, it's so good to talk to you. We've been on Zoom for like 5 minutes. I feel like the three of us are already going to like just go get a beer sometime.
Yeah, sounds great. Cider donuts. Yeah, I mean, what could go wrong? Cider donuts,
Oregon wine.
Beer, Oregon wine. Yeah, it's great. It's going to be a great time whenever we all see each other in person. So I'm really looking forward to it.
I do have to ask first, how is it in Arizona right now? It's January 25th. Here it's snow. Well, the snow just stopped. Here in New York, it's just been cold and gray. What's the status in Scottsdale right now?
I mean, you're saying it's warm, but I'm still currently wearing 4 layers. So it's, I had a little bit of ice on the front of my car.
Oh, okay.
Driving in this morning at 5 a.m. But other than that, you just got to put yourself in a mental state where you're just thinking it's warm and get over it.
That's good. So it's not gloating. Like if you were going to be like, oh, it's a high of 78 and it's perfect here today, I was going to be like, and this interview is over because now I'm just jealous.
Yeah. Well, good thing it's this week, because next week that might've been happening. So good thing.
Okay, good. Yeah. We dodged the bullet. All right, Ronnie, let's dive in to your new position in the Arizona Diamondbacks organization here in 2023. You get to step into the role of manager for the Hillsboro Hops in the High A Northwest League, which is one of the coolest destinations in all of minor league baseball, one of the greatest ballparks in minor league baseball. And you are in a system right now that has so much talent and is really building something in a very difficult division to build something in. When you were named to this post, I don't even know how you probably quantify the excitement and the energy that you feel going into this assignment now, but take us through what it was like. When did this conversation first start with the D-backs of, hey, we think the next step for you is a managerial spot? Take us through how this all kind of came together.
Yeah, so I was actually working this past season with the Fall League. So I was working with the Salt River Rafters, and I got a call from Josh. I believe it was October, I want to say. And I wasn't expecting a call. I was actually cleaning my apartment. All of a sudden, I get a call from Josh Barfield. I'm like, uh-oh, go ahead and pick it up. Again, not expecting the call. He's like, hey, Ronnie, how's it going? I'm like, yeah, I'm just, cleaning my blinds, no big deal. And then he said, we want to go ahead and talk to you about next season. I'm like, sick, sounds great. And he goes, so we'd really like for you to be up in Hillsboro. Oh, wait, hold on a second. I'm getting another call. Sit there for about 30 seconds. I'm like, oh my gosh, what is it going to be? Gets on. Hey, Ronnie, you still there? Yep, I'm still here. Just been very patiently, but it felt like 5 minutes that I was waiting for, and told me that I was going to go ahead and be the manager up in Hillsboro. And we had a great conversation afterwards of how they saw me and the value and whatnot that I'd be bringing up there, as well as to the other staff who's going to be blessing me up there. And so yeah, I was holding it in, and I went to my wife and told her, and she started crying, and she was pretty excited. So she did the crying for the both of us. So I appreciate
That's
her.
always good.
Yeah, it's great.
And at what point did the history of that moment hit you? I mean, it's one thing to get your first managerial job in minor league baseball. That's a huge moment for any coach.
Mhm.
But to be the first woman to be a high A skipper, that's a huge deal just for baseball in general. At what point did that hit you?
It hit me on Friday when they released it. I felt like the past couple of months I've been living like a little bit of a ninja or a spy, like incognito. No one knew what was going on, but me, as well as my family, I really didn't even tell a lot of my close friends or anything like that. And there had obviously been conversations throughout our organization about me taking the managerial role. So I was living a little bit of bliss, fishing, no big deal. And then, getting here for Instructs a week and a half ago. And then obviously too with the announcement and seeing all of the positive press from it, just from everybody, all the social media outlets and whatnot. And I'm not one to really go on social media, but I can tell you on Friday it was a lot as my phone was blowing up. So I told my wife, I'm going to go ahead and put my phone down so we can actually have a good dinner time rather than me just staring at it. But no, I didn't realize how, I knew, but I didn't realize just how big until it was actually in my face.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what does that mean to you now then that you've had almost a week? I mean, it's been 5 days since the announcement. What does it mean to you now to have that reaction, especially social media being what it is? The outpouring of support was massive.
Yeah. No, it was great. And I think the biggest thing too, in regards of, women are now getting the experiences that they need to fill the resumes to get to this role. And 10 years ago, it wasn't like that. So the fact that women are now becoming normal in these type of roles, in regards of being an on-field coach, or with Rachel Fulton with the Cubs, who's assistant hitting coordinator, or Veronica Alvarez, the coordinator of player development with the A's in Latin America. So just the fact to even be, in my opinion, at that level with those females, it's a great honor. And also the fact that I get to call them really, really good and close friends of mine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and let's go into your resume a little bit. Last year, you worked with Amarillo. You were first base coach. That wasn't originally the plan. You were supposed to be in the Arizona Complex League. You get the call after an injury to one of their coaches.
Yeah.
You move up to Double-A. What was that experience like in getting really entrenched with the D-backs on the field with a full season club?
Yeah, no, it was, Josh called me in, showed me the x-ray of Kalina's foot. I was like, oh yeah, that does not look like a good time. Told me, hey, we'd really like for you to fill in. And he was like, you can go ahead and talk to your wife first. And in my mind, I'm like, well, I'm already going to say yes, but yeah, I'll go ahead and go back and talk to her. And she was very supportive of it. She was actually working up in Hillsboro, which again, I'll be at this upcoming season. So it was a little bit of an easy transition for me to go ahead and go. And working with Shane Lukes again, who I'd worked with the previous season up in Hillsboro with the pitching coach. So having some familiarity with him and a familiar face, as well as too some of the players that we had up there who I had seen the previous season, as well as also too during spring training. So, you're fitting into a spot that you didn't necessarily know that you were going to be going into, but the openness, obviously, of the staff that I'd already been working with, as well as the players, and, just getting down and dirty with it. So no, it was great.
Ronnie, you mentioned that your wife already works up in Hillsboro, and that's pretty serendipitous for you to get your first assignment up there and to be able to share that with the most important person in your life. And to not only that, but, get to continue doing this in an organization that you've been in for a few seasons now. Yeah. It would be a cool opportunity if any other system came to you and said, hey, we want you as a manager, come on over here. But to share this with the D-backs family over those first few years, getting into the day-to-day on-field stuff with a team, what was it like last year, especially having had a base of already knowing some of those guys from earlier in their careers, to be around them on a daily basis, get a chance to work with them, form those on-field relationships? What was that like, just being able to make this happen for a full season in Double-A?
Yeah, it just kind of felt normal. Obviously before this, I was coaching softball, either, at Liberty University as a GA coach, and also too at University of Massachusetts Amherst. So it's just having the same conversations. And I mean, the reason why I got into coaching is because I got so much out of this game from the game itself, as well as also to the people to help me become the person and coach that I am today. So to be able to give back to these guys and, help them reach their dreams and, how they wanted to be a big leaguer growing up. So it's great just to be able to help them there. And also too, just to see it click for them when they do get something, to see it, work in the cage or work when we're doing early work or grunt work. And then they go out in the game and they do it. And just to see that smile on their face, it's really great to see that.
I have to ask you one thing, which is, as a manager, you get tasks sometimes with, infield, outfield, all that stuff. And the toughest thing is hitting that straight up fungo pop up for a catcher to try to catch during the end of infield, outfield. What's your, how would you grade yourself in that? I've watched like managers and coaches do that forever and think, if you gave me 1,000 chances to hit a straight up pop up for a catcher to make a play on, I would succeed 0% of the time. What's your grade for yourself on that?
Yeah, the grade is, normally 20 to 80 when you're a scout, and I'm probably at a 19. So that's something that I definitely need to practice on. I don't know if they even can go negatives, but that's probably where I'm living at about right now. It's all about vulnerability. It is. I'm not the greatest at it, but I am a very good fungo hitter. I will give kudos to myself. I do throw a mean BP. But that is something that I definitely need to get better at before I showcase it. So I appreciate you bringing that to light for me. So really thank you for that.
Very glad we could expose the one poor area of the scouting report.
Yeah.
It's always what we try to do. I'm doing the like Rodney Dangerfield collar pull right now. As far as managerial tactics go, managerial identity, managerial strategy, it's so different, obviously, being a manager from being a coach, whether it's a pitching coach or a hitting coach or whatever. Who are some of your influences, learning how to manage a bullpen? It's so different nowadays, of course, in terms of pitch counts and rest days and everything else than it would have been if you were taking this job on, 20 years ago or something like that. But that stuff, lineup construction, how much of that did you get to learn last year in Amarillo, and how much is just kind of osmosis through not only your life in softball, but baseball as well? How have those things come along for you and your identity as a manager?
Yeah, no, for sure. Being in Amarillo last season, being with Sean Roof, and then also too, obviously with Shane, and hearing their discussions in the dugout, what they do, prepping the game of, hey, if this happens, if we're up to, if we're down to, who are we putting in? If this happens, what would be a really good option here? And then obviously too, with all the data that we have in regards of, of pitchers, hitters, and all that, it was great to see them work and to see kind of a filtering too. There's going to be times where you butt heads, but as long as you're passionate and you have that backing up, then you're going to go ahead and make the decision that you feel is right. So to be able to see that live in action, and then also too, just the conversations off the field about it. And even today, we had he's going to be a fourth coach in Visalia. He sent me a bunch of stuff that he had used in the past and what the D-backs have used, and, getting myself familiarized with that aspect. And, again, to your point, you can only do so much prepping until, I don't know if I can say this, but until you're literally in the So, it's just getting that experience. Like, you only get experience sometimes of when you're actually doing it. So I'm going to do everything that I can beforehand to prep myself, to put myself in the best situation. And then from there, it's just gaining the experience and then having those conversations after the fact.
Yeah, and amongst the things you can look forward to, like, what are you most excited about? Like, you are going to walk in opening day with the Hops. It is your clubhouse to run. What are you most excited about with that experience?
I'm just excited to share that with the guys. I know that obviously right now we're in instructs, we're going to be here for early camp, and then also too with spring training and building those relationships with those guys, and just being there for an opening day with them. And I know it's going to be me leading the ship, but there's also a lot of other leaders who are going to be on our staff, as well as also two players. So, and also too, just to be doing it in Hillsboro, because again, with my first year being there, with how open they were with everything and how great the GM is, how great the owners are, the staff on and off the field, it's a little bit of a full circle moment for me. So the fact that I am able to do it there for such great people, as well as too for the Diamondbacks, bringing back to what you're saying, Tyler, to be able to start my managerial career with the Diamondbacks, who gave me my first opportunity in pro ball. So, and I give kudos to Corey Swope, who was the first guy to hire me, to bring me in, and also too with Josh Barfield and everybody else here who has given me so much and educated me. It's great to be able to do this for them and shine a light on how great our system is.
Yeah, and kind of pivoting off of that, I mean, what do you feel like about the Arizona developmental pipeline? Because right now, so many people talk about the Corbin Carrolls, the Drew Joneses that they just brought in, Jordan Lawlers, Brandon Pfaadt, these really good prospects that they've developed in recent years, and it feels like the D-backs are going to make a corner. But what is it about either your coaching strategy or developmental strategy that plugs in really well with this Arizona pipeline?
Yeah, no, I think again, at the end of the day, everyone wants to know that they're cared about and thought about and loved. And when you show them too that just like how coaches cared about me, like I'm going to care about you as a person. There are going to be days where you're up and there's going to be days where you're down. I don't want them to necessarily ride the waves. I just want them to float on the waves. Oh, we're here at this high moment. It's awesome to be here. And there's going to be times where it comes down and you're like, all right, here I am. So it's just being able to have those conversations and know that, they're already hard on themselves. And this game is a huge game of failure, but for them to know that we're supporting them and that we are wanting them to succeed. And even on those little things of the conversation, physically or mentally, we're here for them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And Tyler asked you before about your ability to hit the ball straight in the air. I'm going to allow you to stun on yourself a little bit more. Just talk about your career, your playing career. You played at USF, obviously, and then you pivoted to coaching after that, but you helped win a baseball competition at the Toronto Pan Am Games. I mean, who were you as a player, and how does that affect who you are as a coach?
Yeah, it was a pretty sick moment for sure. I remember hearing my name get called out when we were sitting in the hotel after the trials, and just to hear my name Gajownik come out, obviously at the time that was 2015. I can't remember how old I was. I think I was 21 or 29. I think I was 21 at the time. And to be able to call my parents and tell them that I get to represent the United States of America, and be there with all of the great other great female athletes that I was with, it was a huge honor. And for me, playing softball, there was one game at USF where I played short, I played second, and I played third. So it's more of a utility. It was really big in the defense. I love the mental side of the preparation for defense. I know a lot of stuff goes in offense mentally to prepare, but defense, there's a lot of things that you can go ahead and do. And so with that style of being a utility, seeing it from the different sides and whatnot, it's just kind of about grinding it out, and wherever you're at, just ball out.
Ronnie, this is a time in the baseball world where, and I'm going to kind of nerd out a little bit, because one thing that I love over the time that I've been able to broadcast things internationally is women's baseball and the Women's Baseball World Cup. And there has been so much, even just over the last 2 years, not to mention 5 years or 10 years, there's been so much visibility given now to not just women in coaching and women in front office roles, but also women playing the game and doing it at a really high level. What's kind of the next step for that? We're finally back after the pandemic year into the next rotation for the Women's Baseball World Cup. USA Baseball playing a qualifier later this year. There'll be a World Cup in 2024 on the women's side. But the amount of talent that you played with and players who have been around, who've been legendary in their time in women's baseball, Malika Underwood, and the players like Isla Borders, who really established kind of the first hammer in the wall of trying to break through and play this game at a high level. Women's baseball, there's a very bright future for. What is kind of that next step, and how do you want to see that evolve? We know how successful softball is, but I don't think that there's a world that exists where both of those things can't be tremendously successful. What's the next stage for those teammates that you had in 2015 and for the continued growth of women's baseball?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it comes down to money, and it comes down to, like you said, people are starting to see more and more of it and understanding that there is value and there is presence for women to be in the game. So I think the biggest thing, again, is just money, showing the value of it. And also too, I mean, we had a woman, Olivia Pichardo, who's now at Brown, and she's playing and she's doing a great job. So it's
first Division I player in history, first woman to play D1 baseball. She was added for that 2023 roster at Brown.
Exactly. And again, I don't know if I can say this, but she's a badass, and you know what? She balls out, and to be able to see her be so successful at that. And so I think just even with her success so far, people saying that, like, wow, she can hang and she can compete and she's good. So the fact that now people are saying that, then I think also too, fathers and mothers who, rather than, because again, growing up, I grew up playing baseball, and then, someone told my dad, hey, girls don't play baseball. So then he put me in softball. But now the fact that there are people like Olivia Pichardo they can say, no, girls can play baseball. So you know what, little Jenny, if you want to stay in baseball, you stay in baseball. So I think it's just seeing that out and about in the world, and then being like, yeah, okay, you go ahead and stick with this. So this is what you want, then go ahead and go out and get it.
I remember talking with Megan Baltzel a few years ago, who was on USA Baseball rosters for a couple of World Cups. And she said the same thing of like, softball wasn't my first love. Baseball has always been my first love. And being forced into that avenue, I just wasn't really that happy with it, and was still very successful with it. But the way somebody on the women's national team compared it to me is, it's essentially like saying tennis and ping pong are the same sport.
I've said that before. Yeah.
There are similar elements, but it's not the same sport at all.
Yeah.
To be now one of the people who increases that visibility, is that something that you kind of want to help with the construction of that next chapter? I know every Women's World Cup that I've worked, there's always that conversation of, we know how talented we are, we know how good we are, but we also aren't practicing 40 weeks out of the year like Japan's national team does. We don't get those same opportunities. Do you want to help sort of enhance that, in addition to what you're going to be doing on the professional side? That's something else that's potentially a cool opportunity. Is that something that's in your sights too?
Yeah, no, Veronica Alvarez, who's the manager of the women's national team, and then also too now the coordinator of player development in Latin America for the A's. Her and I are actually very, very good friends. I was actually just talking to her this morning about her dog. But yeah, no, I think it's just, now that we're seeing again the value and the presence and kind of the badassery that there is in the sport with women, it's just getting that money. It's just someone seeing how great it can be and believing in it and taking that chance, just like how there's so many women now who are also too, like taking that chance at the next job of being in pro baseball. I could have easily stayed in the softball realm, but I thought, you know what, I want to go ahead and give this a go. And even if it doesn't work out, I'm seeing how the pros are running it. So the fact of taking that chance, that's what someone's going to have to do for women's baseball. And then again, they are going to go ahead and they'll see the product and they'll be like, all right, let's go ahead and do it.
All right, Ronnie, I got to ask you one question just in terms of your baseball love.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask you your favorite player of all time and your favorite teammate of all time, because whenever I get a question of like, oh, who's your favorite player? Who's your favorite player that you've broadcasted for? I always say favorite player of all time is Larry Walker. My favorite player I've ever broadcasted for is Jade Gortares of the U.S.
Oh, all right. Yeah, my ex-teammate.
Love. Because every time I watch her, I'm like, oh, that's what people felt like when they watched like Derek Jeter at 18.
Yeah,
like
she's
just
smooth. She's
so smooth and a level of cool that I could never aspire to attain. So your favorite player of all time, like when you were a kid, and your favorite teammate.
Yeah. So my favorite player growing up was Sammy Sosa. I actually, growing up, my mom, for some reason, had my bedroom purple, which is not really a great color for me. And I believe they said if I got straight A's, I can go ahead and paint my room whatever color if I got all straight A's. So I said, okay, got straight A's, and I painted it Cubbies blue and red. And my mom absolutely hated it. So but yeah, and then even so back in the day, it was the Scholastic Book Fair, and they had all the different posters of all the different athletes. And I was collecting them. I had A-Rod, I had Barry Bonds, and there was a Sammy Sosa one I really, really wanted. And my mom would not give me the $5 to get it. And I just absolutely broke my heart. And there was one day that I was playing somewhere downstairs, ball rolled underneath, and I saw the Sammy Sosa poster. I was like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe it. So Sammy Sosa was my favorite player growing up. He was my first heartbreak as well. And then my favorite player that I've played with
or against.
I
want to make it that, because I don't want to make it seem like you're just playing favorites with a team.
Yeah, no. I think
somebody whose game you admire, or somebody you just love learning from, or something like that.
I think playing against, I really enjoyed playing against Stacey Piagno, and she actually played for the Sonoma Stompers a couple of years back. Yeah. She was great on the mound. So I just loved watching her work. And also too, it made my job a little bit easier because she was pretty good at it. But now also too, with the conversations with Veronica Alvarez, and just the knowledge that she brings from her playing days, then also too being in baseball for so long now, it's great to have those conversations and for us to look back kind of on the days that we did play with each other.
All right, Ronnie, we'll end on these two, just focus on the day job that you have coming up in 2023. I know you guys, like you said, you've started Instructs a little. We're not quite yet at full spring training. Nobody knows exactly who's going to be on the Hops roster, but when you look forward to this year. Who are you excited to potentially work with? Like I look at Melendez, who was a big pick last year, such a performer at Texas in college. Seems like he could be an option for high A, but who are you looking at maybe, managing in the season?
Yeah, again, like you said, I kind of have no idea who's going to be on our opening day roster, but, obviously getting my hands on Melendez. And then also too with Drew Jones, it's going to be exciting to see in regards of all the hype that is behind them. The hype is definitely well deserved, and I'm excited to see what they do with it and just to see how they're grinding in and out. Even so, with these past couple of days with Melendez being here with Instructs, just seeing how he is getting better defensively. So it's going to be, and then also too, just with our whole entire staff up there. I know our pitching coach, Gabby, was talking about how great our bullpen is going to be this year. So just to be able, I haven't had too many eyes on the bullpen yet because we're pretty split up here in Instructs, but just all the great things that he's been saying. And then also too, just seeing the infielder. So no, I think it's going to be a great year. I had one of our guys come up to me today, Bain, who finished up in AAA, one of our pitchers, saying, how excited he is for us to be up there and how many wins we're going to be getting. So it's pretty cool to have someone like him, who we had last year in Amarillo. This is the success that he's had, and already kind of a little bit of the hype from the players themselves in regards of who's going to be there as well as the staff.
All right, cool. We'll definitely circle that bullpen. And also kind of pivoting off that, you look at like Visalia, and that's where guys are just getting their full season careers going. And Amarillo, where you were last year, that's where it really feels like guys are close. High A is that middle ground. Mm-hmm. How do you kind of view coaching at that level and what that level means?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of that. It's a little bit of that breaking point, and especially too, a lot of our hitters like to call the stadium where hitters go to die. So if you can, I think too, it's a little bit more of that. I think in Hillsboro, it's a little bit more of a mental game, especially too when it comes to hitting. So being able to bridge that gap between, they're getting their first year, or they're, being in Visalia for that first season, and then coming up to Hillsboro and then seeing the shining lights at Amarillo where you can hit it, exit velo 86 and hit a pop-up and it goes out. So I think it's going to be more of a mental challenge for them. But you know what, I'd much rather have that there and learn early than having to learn that up in AAA. So I think they might not necessarily see it as a benefit, but it's definitely going to help them physically, but majority of the time mentally.
All right, well, we'll end on this one. I was just looking at the schedule. You guys open April 6th at Tri-City at 6:30 Pacific time start. As you're filling out that lineup for that first game, and again, we don't know who's going to lead off and who's going to bat second quite yet, but as you look forward to that, what do you think is going to be running through your head?
Holy no,
understandable.
No, I'm gonna think about it. I just for me for this gig, and you're a product of your environment, and I think that it goes obviously for every single human being on this planet that you're a product of your environment. So the fact of it's not just me writing the lineup, it's my pitching coach, it's my fourth coach, it's my hitting coach, it's Josh Barfield, it's Corey Swope, it's Shane Lukes, it's my wife, it's all of my friends. So I think that yes, I might be the one who's physically doing all the writing out, but there's a lot of things that had to go into it from everybody who I've come into contact with. So I think it's going to be a big moment for me. And I hope it's also a big moment for everyone who's helped me and helped everybody on our staff.
All right, Ronnie, last one, and we're going to wrap it up. By the way, just hearing that Josh Barfield is old enough to be a farm director makes me age. I'm like, oh, no, he's like a 25-year-old prospect. And now I feel very old. But we've had some rule changes, obviously, in minor league baseball and recent season stuff that's going to the big league level. Final point, how much do you think that's helped to change the game in the minor leagues? Obviously, things have been really successful. They moved up to the big league level, but being a manager, having seen the last couple of seasons, the larger bases, the shift restrictions, automatic balls and strikes at certain leagues and certain levels, the pitch timer, all of that. What do you feel like that has done? And especially being somebody now who can kind of implement those things as, hey, we're a foot closer to, to having a stolen base here, all this type of stuff. How much has that changed, the way the game has been played at the minors and what people can look forward to now at the big league level?
Yeah, no, during the fall league, some of the stadiums had the big bags. And then when we would play here at Salt River, they had the little bags. I was like, wow, that's like a Great Dane bed to like a Chihuahua bed. So yeah, it's a pretty big difference. So
it's a really good description, by the way. That's how I'm going to try to explain that to people from now on.
It's crazy. Yeah. So, but yeah, no, I think just to see how, I think in the beginning, it was kind of a little bit of a heads or tails in regards of the pitch clock, but we've seen such a positive take on it from pitchers themselves, from the hitters, as well as to people who are engaging in the game. And, you know, there was one game that I was a part of that was almost 4 hours long, and there weren't any people there. And, you know, you're playing this game, you're obviously playing it for yourself, you're playing it for the team you represent, but you're also playing it for the fans. So especially for that pitch clock, allowing those fans to stay there, because again, there are times in the game that you are playing off of the fans in regards of how engaged they are. So to be able to keep fans there a little bit longer, I think is definitely going to be an advantage. But yeah, so that's my take on it.
Well, it's all coming up in 2023. The manager of the Hillsboro Hops in the High A Northwest League, Ronnie Gajownik, the first woman to get that post in High A, and the first of many, many more to come. Ronnie, thanks so much for all the time today. Next week, enjoy the weather, but don't tell us about it because we're probably both going to be miserable.
Sounds good. Sounds good.
Thanks, Ronnie.
Thank you.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. Stop waiting around for the perfect candidate. Instead, use Indeed sponsored jobs to find the right people with the right skills fast. It's a simple way to make sure your listing is the first candidates see. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs have 4 times more applicants than non-sponsored jobs. So go build your dream team today with Indeed. Get a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
Well, continuing to roll along on this week's episode of the show before the show, we are excited to talk with your good pal and ours, Benjamin Hill. Ben, it's good to see you. What's going on?
Yeah, good to see you guys as well, even though I can't actually see you.
That is true. Because we each cut our video in an attempt to save bandwidth, and now I feel bad, and so I just popped back on. And so did
now you came back in. It's just like we're all in the same room together. Now I feel whole. But yeah, recording on a Wednesday. I spend most days in the office, but working from home today. And yeah, we're doing our thing remotely, as one does in this era of existence.
This wild modern world of ours, which is where we find ourselves today, talking about some fun topics with Ben Hill, as we always do. And we got to kick things off with a story from the cradle of minor league baseball, North Carolina, with the Hickory Crawdads, who are unveiling an alternate identity in 2023, which is part of the Hickory Crawdads Theme Night Collection. And it will pertain to a series in Thursday, August 17th through Saturday, August 19th against Rome in Hickory. Ben, this is a very unique alternate identity for several reasons, but tell us about it, and then we're going to pepper you with questions.
Yeah, and I'm no expert. We can all talk it out together, but this was just announced yesterday. Tyler, as you said, 3 games in August. The Hickory Crawdads will play as the Hickory Dickory Docks, which just immediately captures your attention. The Hickory Dickory Docks, of course, a reference to the old nursery rhyme, Hickory Dickory Dock, the mouse ran up the clock. Before we went on air, Tyler asked the question, wait, does that rhyme, that nursery rhyme, have anything to do with Hickory, North Carolina? And I just said, oh, no, of course not. And then I was correct, but I just said that without really knowing. And we all know, you know, that's a not a good way to go about life, you know, what they say about those who assume. So I did do a mild amount of research, and it looks like Hickory Dickory Dock, the nursery rhyme, the mouse ran up the clock, you know, I found that the earliest recorded version of this rhyme was in Tommy Thumb's Pretty Songbook in about 1744. So
1744, holy cow.
And then who knows how long it existed before it was published in any form as just, you know, something that was, passed on. And, you know, of course, there were variations on the opening lines. The one in 1744 says Hickory Dickory, well, whatever, it spells the words differently. I don't know how they were supposed to be pronounced. It was later Dickory Dickory Dock. So there's been different variations of it. So it has nothing to do with Hickory, North Carolina, but the version that has been canon, at least in the United States, for as long as we all can remember, is Hickory Dickory Dock. And so the Crawdads just said, you know what, we're going to be the Dickory Docks. And the logo for these, the color scheme is, I would even call it kind of a throwback, San Diego Padres type vibe, even though the Crawdads are not a San Diego affiliate, but you got the brown and that mustard yellow. And the Hickory Dickory Dock jerseys had, kind of clock gears on the sleeves in yellow against a brown base. And the hat, as one would expect when you're playing as the Dickory Docks, it literally depicts a mouse running up the clock. The mouse is holding a baseball bat, the clock. Now, what do you call it in a clock? The circular thing underneath the clock that ticks back and forth to count the seconds. There has to be a terminology.
It's got to be a pendulum, right?
Yeah, a pendulum, and let's call it that. But the pendulum is a baseball, and the clock is kind of side-eyeing the mouse, just like, yo, what are you doing running up me? I didn't give you permission for this.
The mouse is very big compared to the clock, by the way, especially
and very angry. We should also say.
very angry. The mouse is angry. The clock looks more irritated than it looks angry. But like if this is a grandfather clock and that mouse is to scale, that means that mouse is like at least 4 feet long. Which I don't know, maybe in 1744 it could have been conceivable. I don't know about in Hickory, but it's a very large mouse.
But I do envision this more as a perhaps a mantle clock as opposed to a grandfather clock.
That makes more sense.
But you're right, Tyler. We were left with no clues over how tall either clock or mouse is, so you can just let your imagination run wild. But the mouse is roughly as tall as the clock, and the clock is understandably peeved at this mouse running up it. Anyway, it's a really creative identity. 3 nights in August. Might have to talk to someone with the Crawdads down the line and get more on this story. It certainly got a good reaction on social media yesterday. I am definitely a fan of it because it's just, as I've said in previous podcasts, it's been a little harder to come by just these kind of minor league promos that are just like, why not? And I feel like this is very much a why not minor league promo. We play in Hickory. What's the most common association with the word Hickory in the English language? Hickory Dickory Docks. So let's be the Dickory Docks. And it's just such a ridiculous name for a team. And of course, the clock is set to 8:28 on the cap logo, and that is Hickory's area code. So you do have, even though the nursery rhyme has nothing specific to do with Hickory, North Carolina, they gave it that little local Easter egg with the clock reading 8:28, as long as you know how to tell time on an old-fashioned clock, which I'm told not many people do nowadays, but that's 8:28.
Yeah, and we were joking about this before, but we should also be clear, like, games aren't starting at 8:28, right? Like, that's they're not going to be starting an hour and a half later than usual during that time, as much as I would like that. Also, if there's any way we could ensure it, like no delay, no rain in the Hickory area, that at that time, everything needs to start exactly on time. And then the Dickory Docks. I feel like if there were ever a series I could not afford to delay, it's this one.
Yeah, agreed. You got to start on time when you're representing the clocks. So this one's exciting, and I think this logo with the color scheme and the unique story behind it has and will continue to get attention, nationwide, as opposed to just being a very specific local thing.
I do like your description too, that it's become a little bit more challenging for us to find some of those just random, like, why not minor league baseball promos. And this is very much one of them. There is also a cool element. You may have mentioned this, but the sleeves of the jersey have like clock gears as the decorative elements on the sleeves. So it's a very inventive promotional idea for the Hickory Dickory Docks, known to you as the Hickory Crawdads, except for August 17th to the 19th of this 2023 season. Then ballpark guides continue to roll out on the site. I know Steph Sheehan has been crushing some ballpark guides as of late. You continuing, as always, to do your fantastic ballpark guide work. Where have you been touring through in a virtual sense on the minor league landscape lately?
Yeah, minor league ballpark guides. We've talked about them a lot over the last, I don't even know how long, couple of years now here on the podcast. And we're in the home stretch. We have 119 of them to do and are close to 100 right now. And a lot of new ones to read. Right now, they're all accumulated on MILB.com/fan/ballpark-guide. got a lot of new ones to check out. Check, minor league baseball social as well, to see the latest ones, Twitter at MILB, et cetera, et cetera. But Tyler, as you mentioned, our colleague Steph Sheehan has come in with her first 2 ballpark guides of the project, and she has taken us to MGM Park, home of the Biloxi Shuckers, as well as Baycare Ballpark, the spring training home of the Phillies, and home of the Clearwater Threshers of the Florida State League. Meanwhile, Michael Avalone has made his ballpark guide debut with the Memphis Redbirds AutoZone Stadium. And in particular, I've been on a little Midwest kick with the ballpark guides. I've done them for Cedar Rapids Colonels Veterans Memorial Stadium, Dozer Park, home of the Peoria Chiefs, and Principal Park, home of the Iowa Cubs. And a funny thing about all 3 of those teams, Peoria Chiefs, Iowa Cubs, Cedar Rapids Colonels, is they all have pork tenderloins at the concession stand. And, you're in the Midwest when you go to a minor league ballpark and it has pork tenderloins. We've talked about them on the podcast before. Peoria Chiefs actually debuted a tenderloins alternate identity last year. They hadn't even sold tenderloins at the ballpark until they debuted that alternate identity. But, if you're not familiar with the pork tenderloin, they're not always fried, but they're usually breaded and fried. Sometimes they're grilled, but the meat on top of the bun is comical. It's as if it's as if the largest man in the world was wearing a little cap made for a baby.
It's that old Mitch Hedberg bit about New York deli sandwiches where he calls them like a cow with a cracker on either side. That's a pork tenderloin sandwich.
Precisely. So they're not particularly vertical. They are just these horizontal sandwiches where the bun cannot contain this sprawling piece of pork tenderloin. But anyway, it's been nice to be, at least spiritually traveling to the Midwest and writing those ballpark guides. We could go on and on about all these different teams that we've mentioned so far. I think one interesting thing that I learned in writing these ballpark guides is Principal Park, home of the Iowa Cubs. Certainly one of the best ballpark views in the minor leagues. You have downtown Des Moines in the left field corner, and you have the confluence of 2 rivers at the ballpark. And geez, I'm blanking on the names of those rivers. I just wrote the ballpark guide, but you've got rivers, you got downtown view, and just way beyond center field, you have the Iowa State Capitol building gleaming in the distance. And that was like always a really cool part of the Principal Park ballpark view, was the Iowa State Capitol building with this, this spire-topped dome in the background. But, hitters had complained for years that, especially on sunny days, the glare from the dome was affecting their view. And as part of some recent renovations at Principal Park, they have created a new ballpark, a new batter's eye that significantly reduces the visibility of the Capitol Dome in the ballpark. So from a ballpark view perspective, that's not good. From a hitter perspective, it's a good thing. But now if you really want to see the State Capitol Dome when you're at an Iowa Cubs game, you have to be sitting in the 10th row or above to take in that view. Otherwise, you're going to be just like the batters themselves. You're going to have that view greatly obscured by the batter's eye.
All right, Ben. Well, now it's going to be a pop quiz on what these 2 rivers are, because I just looked them up. One is a city name and one is an animal name. What are they?
Yeah, one's Raccoon River.
One's Raccoon River.
Raccoon. It's not the Des Moines River, is it?
It is the Des Moines River. Yes.
Yeah. I would not have gotten either of those.
See, you knew it deep in your heart. You just needed a little.
I did, and I just wrote the ballpark guide. It was push. Right there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Their confluence is visible from the ballpark, and you have one of the rivers running right behind the ballpark, the other down the first base side. I believe it's the Raccoon River on the first base side, and Des Moines running past the outfield, and they have their little confluence there. But between the rivers, the downtown views, the State Capitol building, definitely a cool spot to see a game and get a pork tenderloin while you're at it there in Des Moines. Or really also in Cedar Rapids or in Peoria. Go to the Midwest if you want some pork tenderloin, and read these ballpark guides to learn about the teams, the ballparks, and other things to do in the area.
Well, Ben, you mentioned good views, from the ballpark, and how now that might be a little bit obscured at Principal Park, but obviously there are good views everywhere in minor league baseball. You threw this out in your latest newsletter, asking people for their favorite views or their favorite seats in minor league baseball, and it was such a good thing to see, both in the newsletter and just on social media, the way people were responding to that. Instantly my mind flooded to a bunch of things like nothing beats the view on Coney Island when like the sun's going down and you see the cyclone in the background and all the roller coasters and the beach and the waves rolling in. But like that's home for me. But also, I thought back to like my favorite view ever was last year going with my dad and my nephew to a game and just sitting behind them and seeing my nephew really take it in like that. It's such a wide topic and invites so many different answers that you got a lot of. So as you were asking people this question, what were some of your favorite answers?
Yeah, and the way this was phrased, this was actually a suggestion from one of my newsletter readers to ask this question. And I like the way it's phrased because it's what's your favorite seat or view? So kind of like you just did, Sam, you could answer it from just the perspective of, wow, I'm in Salt Lake and I see the mountains and that's an amazing view. But you could also answer it from a personal perspective in terms of maybe who you were at the game with or what you liked very specifically, about a seat, not so much in the overarching view of downtown or nature or anything, but just what it revealed about the field or how you could interact with players or whatnot. So, I've been writing the newsletter for a better part of a year, and this got more responses to this question than any others that I've asked, and a great corresponding Twitter thread as well. Last week's newsletter, it comes out every Thursday, was dedicated to this week's, which will be out, before this podcast even is released, will be part 2 in the Ben's Biz Beat newsletter. So got a lot of great, interesting responses. One person wrote in about Rickwood Field, where in Birmingham, where there was a Rickwood Classic every year. The Birmingham Barons played there between 1910 and 1986, and the Rickwood Classic took place between 1996 and 2019, playing at a minor league game, at this beautiful old ballpark. And one of the readers, Mikkel Petty, sent me a picture when he was at the Rickwood Classic, and he just said, the batter, Birmingham shortstop Danny Mendick, is about to hit a double into the left field corner. The seat location is nothing special. He's down the first baseline. So why is this my favorite view, he asks? Look closely. There's no obscuring netting and no distracting electronic scoreboard, just old school time machine baseball. So, you can kind of filter your answers through that kind of thing of a view that makes you feel like you're in another place, never different place or time. Another William Tusias said the view from the home run porch section at Las Vegas ballpark, and sent in a beautiful photo of looking from the outfield at towards home plate at Las Vegas ballpark with that press box in the shape of kind of the cockpit of a plane. That's another beautiful view. Sam, you mentioned the New York City views. Brooklyn Cyclones got responses related to the Staten Island Yankees, how you can see the Statue of Liberty and the ferry and the New York City skyline, from that ballpark in Staten Island. And so I could go on and on and on. And in the newsletter, I kind of do, both this week and last, and on Twitter. But it's a fun question. And if you want to get in touch and keep the conversation going, please do so. Twitter at Ben's Biz, email me, benjamin.hill@mlb.com. And then we, of course, have the podcast address too. If maybe we can, hit this topic on the air in the future, if people have things they want to share. And that's what podcast at MILB. I was almost forgetting the I. Podcast at MILB.com. But I think one of the reasons I like this topic so much is because it's not just me, like, oh, I'm the guy who's been to a lot of ballparks. Here's my favorite views. I like hearing from other people and the different ways you can interpret this question and the way you learn about different kind of fans in terms of what they prioritize or what has really made the biggest impact on them at the ballpark.
Benjamin Hill is on Twitter at Ben's Biz. He's on Instagram at the Ben's Biz. You can check out all the stuff, MILB.com/fans/Ben's Biz, and read all of it. Ben, thanks, man.
Thanks, guys. Great talking to you. And I'm sure I will talk to you again.
I think you will. We'll do it soon.
We interrupt this podcast to bring you another thrilling edition of Ghosts of the Miners. Now, here's your correspondent and host, Joshua Jackson.
Welcome back to Miners, in which all of you out there in Radioland must identify the legitimate historical ball club hiding amidst the fraudulent pair. One really stood out in its day. The others never existed, no how, no way. In the last segment, I asked you which of the following minor league baseball teams did at one time play ball. A. The Grays Harbor Loggers. B. The Vermilion Miners. C. The Orange Grove Men. It's a sunny day for you if you picked A. The Grays Harbor Loggers. Who would have been your favorite team were you a baseball fan in Aberdeen, Washington in the late 1970s, and who briefly featured a Paul Bunyan-sized talent from the world of comedy. Grays Harbor County, of which Aberdeen is the biggest city, takes its name from a giant bay christened after 18th century fur trader Robert Gray. But it wasn't that long after Gray went white when timber took over, becoming such a big industry that by the end of 1926, Grays Harbor set a long-standing record by exporting 1.4 billion MBF, meaning 1,000 board feet, of lumber. By the middle 1970s, it was an area pining for baseball. Aberdeen hadn't had a pro team since the 1918 Aberdeen Black Cats meowed. But in the 2 decades prior to that, it was a hotbed featuring a number of clubs, including the 1906 Grays Harbor Lumbermen. After a barren period of more than a half-century, new growth took hold when the Class A short-season Northwest League's Tri-City Ports of Kennewick, Washington, just across the Columbia River from today's Tri-City Dust Devils in Pasco, Washington, failed to field the team for 1975 and were thus uprooted and replanted in Aberdeen for 76, holding the Ports moniker for that season. Isn't Grays Harbor Ports redundant? Asked the Tri-City Herald that March, and for the following season, the Ports name shipped out and the Loggers made camp. Although they competed during an era when clear-cut affiliation agreements had become the norm, the Loggers had no big league organization to stump for them, playing as a co-op club in 77 and altogether independent in 78. In that first season, the Loggers' Juan Delgado swung a mighty stick, swatting 16 homers to tie for the league lead with Mariners up-and-comer Dave Henderson. Meanwhile, Ozzie Smith wowed for the Walla Walla Padres. In 78, without any players from any farm system on the squad, Grays Harbor stormed its way to a title, going 47-23 for the best record in the league and winning the playoffs against the Eugene Emeralds after rain and wet grounds canceled every game besides the opener. Grays Harbor took an affiliation with the Mets in 79 and played under its parent club's name, then played another independent year as the Loggers in 80 before being chopped out of the circuit for 81 for want of an affiliation. But that 78 club went down in history not only for its title but for its star power, as in late July, Bill Murray, friend of our Ben Hill and erstwhile Saturday Night Live cast member.
You know, whenever I tune into Twitter, I tune into Ben Hill's Twitter account.
Played 2 games for the Loggers in a publicity stunt that doubled as a sketch for a The Things We Did Last Summer episode of SNL. Murray logged the hit over 2 plate appearances, and although their lack of an affiliation eventually exiled Grays Harbor from the minors, the sketch that immortalized them on the small screen would have been much less likely if not for Grays Harbor's independent spirit. And that's how the Loggers were felled. Now, on to the question for next time. Which of these teams messed up the yard in the minors of yesteryear? A. The Fresno Fruit Thieves. B. The Watonga Weeds. C. The Centralia Pets. Want to know the answer? Get some fresh air. Or tune to the next Ghosts of the Miners. But for now, you'll have to excuse me. My producer Ben Hill is turning up the hot stove, and he's about to burn my biscuits.
Since we last said to Benjamin Hill that we would be talking to him soon, mere seconds have passed on this podcast. However, nearly 24 full hours have passed in the real world. Time doesn't mean anything. Ben, welcome back.
Hey, thanks. It's great to be back. Yeah, I didn't realize it would be so soon. It's such a bonus to be able to spend more time with you and to be able to speak into this microphone and know that others besides ourselves will soon hear it.
You know, I'm with you. I like it. It's a privilege to have these conversations with you dudes. And we are wrapping up this week's episode of the show before the show. But before we do, we have one of the things that I've been most excited to revisit on an episode of this show, maybe ever. And that is the culmination of the episode that we talked about from 2 weeks ago, in which the three of us went through a creative branding process for our fictional minor league baseball team, the Austin Knights. That's Nights. If you didn't listen to that episode, go back. It's the last one in your feed. Listen to it. Then come to this one. And then check out our social medias, our Twitter feeds. Ben's at Ben's Biz. Sam is at Sam Dykstra, MILB. I am at Tyler Mon. And there you will find the logo created for the Austin Knights by our good friend Vince Pettifrezzo, who did as great of a job as we could have possibly asked for in creating the logo of the Austin Knights. I'm going to give a quick breakdown of it. It's very similar to what we discussed on the show. The Congress Avenue Bridge is kind of the forefront piece of it, with a sort of light blue, a sky blue below the bridge, stanchions of the letter A behind the bridge, and climbing up above it in front of a multicolored sunset, and bats all over the place. The famous bats of the Congress Avenue Bridge in Austin, Texas, also incorporated in our logo. Vince did such an awesome job. You guys, your thoughts? This came out almost exactly as I envisioned it.
Yeah, I mean, actually, it's a little different than what I initially envisioned when I was talking through it. And that's why we have a real designer like Vince do this type of stuff. Because when I was talking about it, if you go back and listen to that episode, I thought like we would have like two light beams or like just lines of bats would be making the top half of the A. Vince didn't do that. He just actually continued the stanchions from the lower parts below the bridge and kept it going and accented it with bats. And it works just so much better that way. If it was filled with bats, it wouldn't quite work on a hat. And I think we talked about that. That might be too much detailing. This works really, really well. There's a bat at the top that kind of forms the very top of the A. I think that's very fitting. It also has different degrees of orange and red. It's not just one. It's not just flat. And I think that makes it feel almost 3D in a way that you don't always see on a hat. I really appreciate it. It has all the stuff we talked about. I mean, the fact that we were sitting here chatting for close to 45 minutes, I want to say, and just came out of this with from whole cloth with suggestions from listeners. And thanks again for those of you who sent those in. But to see it in the real world like this is really, really special.
Yeah, I mean, what Sam said there, for us to brainstorm and BS on the podcast and try to figure out what this would look like is one thing, but then to have someone to be able to produce something coherent off of that was really a notable thing and very satisfying. And I imagine it's what people feel like, who work in front offices all around the country in minor league baseball and just any sports, or not even just sports, but when you're designing a logo and it comes out well. I had that experience personally, better part of a decade ago, when a good friend of mine, Sean Kane, who is known best for his painted gloves. He does excellent artwork on vintage gloves, but he made the Ben's Biz logo and the same sort of thing. It was one thing to talk about, but when he made it, I just was amazed. And I don't think I've really been involved in that process directly since then. So it's really cool to see what Vince did. It's funny, the Houston Astros, those vintage Astros uniforms are often referred to as the Tequila Sunrise. And I would look at this one as a Tequila Sunset. It's kind of complementary to that sort of look, but Austin Knights. And one of the impetus for that name being suggested, it was originally suggested by a guy on Twitter, and
Chad Miller Jr. at Mr._Cinco_Ocho.
Right, and he initially had said Austin Knights with a K, and we changed it to Austin Knights without a K, just Knights. But he also, had the really great idea that it's a play on, Austinites, like a resident of Austin. So I just like that aspect of the name, and Knights is a unique name, at least, without the K, to represent literally a time of day. So yeah, really satisfying thing all around. And thanks to everyone who made it happen, from Chad to us to Vince to, as Tyler said, everyone else who was involved in making suggestions and now giving feedback.
And one thing I think we should say here, because Tyler, you mentioned it's imaginary, like this is not for sale right now. There are a lot of people in our mentions.
We have had so many people in the mentions who are like, hey, if you
like,
make this as a hat, I'll buy it, which is pretty cool.
I would love for there to be a market for it. There aren't any current plans to make this into a hat. If anything changes with that, literally you will hear it here first. We will come to you so quickly to tell you that this is somehow available for purchase. It isn't right now. Also, I wanted to talk to you guys about this. The Round Rock Express, literally the closest team to Austin, sent us a thing that had like the eyeball emoji.
It just said with the thinking emoji.
The thinking emoji.
The thinking guy.
I don't know if they're upset that we chose something in their backyard, or if they're actually thinking about this.
So that was my thought too, because I just assume that everyone everywhere is annoyed with me all the time. So I, including you guys. So I figured like, well, the Austin backyard thing for Round Rock, they're probably very annoyed with this. But so Round Rock is 30 minutes north of Austin. Chad himself jumped in the replies and said, something on the mind. E-train is how we refer to the Express. And then he used the eyeball emojis, and that got me thinking, oh, what if the Round Rock Express are thinking we should play a game as the Austin Knights, and we should have Tyler, Ben, and Sam to Dell Diamond, and we should bring Chad out, and we should make it a whole thing. Ordinarily, I just assume the negative. Maybe this is a really cool thing. Maybe already the wheels are spinning, or they don't really have wheels, I guess, on a train. But they're I mean, they have the metal things, but they're on rails, Sam. Never mind. Maybe that's
how do you think trains work?
Maybe that's what's going on. Maybe that's the next step for this.
We're, as ever, we are available.
Very available.
Take anything out of this podcast is that we are available.
We're very available
if you work in minor league baseball. So we would be very excited if Round Rock wants to do anything with this.
Yes,
we are happy to talk about it.
We are wholeheartedly in for that.
But again, keep them peeled to this podcast, and if anything ever transpires with the Austin Knights, we will let you guys know about it first.
Yeah, conversely, if the Round Rock Express feel that we have, stepped on their territory,
we've encroached on their Major League Baseball granted territorial rights.
Yeah, infringed on their territorial rights, suggested a rival entity to play more or less in their backyards, thus threatening the health of what has been a very successful business. It's a cutthroat world. We're all capitalists, so bring it on. That's all I got to say. Just kidding.
And we're sorry.
Yeah, just kidding. Love you, Round Rock Express. Great place to see a game. Do not come after me with your high-powered lawyers or Nolan Ryan, who I'm sure could still destroy us all, put us in headlocks with no problem whatsoever.
That is definitely true. I have not been to Dell Diamond. I have not been to a Round Rock Express game, but I did write a story about when that TV show Feared the Walking Dead used Dell Diamond as a set for one of their seasons. So, we're pretty much like we're boys, me and the Round Rock Express, front office. So if we want to make it happen, let's just make it happen. Now we're just shamelessly kissing up to the Round Rock Express, being like, take our logo, please invite us out for a night at the ballpark. But Vince did amazing work. You can follow Vince on Twitter. He is at _Pizzle, Pizzle, and amazing work from Vince as always. And that was a whole bunch of fun. We did that just kind of on a whim for National Hat Day, and that is definitely a segment that we are going to be bringing back, where we'll be coming up with some more fun ideas and doing some things like that. So, final thoughts, parting thoughts on this week's episode of the Show Before the Show, you guys?
No, check out the logo on Twitter if you haven't seen it yet. We should get it on Instagram too. Now that
we should
think about it.
Yeah. Yes, that's a good idea.
But check it out. Give us your feedback.
Very good plan.
And like Tyler said, we'll do this again sometime in the near-ish future. Find a new team to infringe upon.
I do think that our next one should be one of Josh Jackson's invented Ghosts of the Minors creations, because we have a ton of those. Hopefully he has them written down somewhere. Otherwise, Josh is going to have to go back through like 80 episodes of Ghosts of the Minors and compile the 2 phony ghost teams that never existed, because I'm not going to do that. We're going to make Josh do that.
He has them on a ledger, kind of like Ebenezer Scrooge would use. He'll be paging through his dusty ledgers, yelling at the help.
Just yelling at Callie. Callie, page 15.
Where are the rest of my legal pads? All right, you guys. Well, we will wrap up this week's episode of the Show Before the Show podcast, the official podcast of minor league baseball, for Benjamin Hill, Sam Dykstra, Josh Jackson, Vince Pettifredso, everybody else. And a huge thanks to Ronnie Gajownik, the new manager of the Hillsboro Hops, for joining the podcast. For Sam and Ben, I'm Tyler. We'll talk to you next week.